everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are going to dive into this super interesting article I found called Millennial Money Makeover, Personal Finance Redefined. It's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Like when you think about millennials and money, you might think of, avocado toast and side hustles. But this article really digs into like a bigger mindset shift.
Totally. And I think it's important to remember that, this generation, they really went through some stuff. Like
Oh,
the 2008 crisis, student debt, the whole gig economy thing. That's a totally different landscape than what their parents faced.
so true. That's a really good point. It's like you can't talk about millennial money without acknowledging that context, right?
Exactly. It shapes their whole outlook.
So let's get into that, like the why behind the shift. What makes millennials tick financially?
Well, one thing that really struck me is that they're not as focused on those traditional markers of success, like, the stable job, the house in the suburbs.
Right.
They're redefining what success means to them.
And a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that like almost half of millennials are part of the gig economy in some way.
Yeah, the article actually highlighted that stat, and it's huge. It shows how they're embracing new ways of working.
It's like they're saying, hey, I'm not afraid to forge my own path.
Exactly. And while there's a ton of autonomy and flexibility in the gig economy, there's also a lot of income instability.
Oh, for sure.
So you see them really emphasizing things like emergency funds and having diverse income streams. Like they're building this safety net for themselves because they know things can be unpredictable.
Which is smart. I mean, one of the things that really stands out in this whole millennial money makeover is this idea of experiences over material possessions.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? And how does that even work when you're talking about financial planning?
Well, I think it's part of a bigger picture.
Yeah.
It's not just about millennials. More and more people are realizing that happiness isn't tied to accumulating a bunch of stuff.
Mhm.
It's about making memories and, traveling and exploring your passions.
Mhm.
And those things require a different approach to managing your money.
Yeah. The article mentions millennials loving to travel, going to concerts, having all these unique dining experiences.
Exactly. It's about spending your money on things that truly align with what you value.
Okay, so we've got this shift away from like just buying a lot of things to having more experiences.
Yeah.
And this ties into this whole idea of mindful spending and minimalism that the article talks about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just about being frugal. It's about really considering the value of what you bring into your life.
Mm-hmm.
Choosing quality over quantity. Think about the environmental impact, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that mindful approach seems to extend to how millennials talk about money too. Like the whole rise of open money conversations on social media. What do you make of that?
I find that fascinating.
It's kind of crazy to think about how much the landscape has changed.
It really has. You've got people sharing financial advice on Reddit and documenting their debt repayment journeys on TikTok and talking about investment strategies on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's like you're breaking down this taboo around talking about money and creating this whole community around it.
Yeah, for sure. But I do wonder, with all this open sharing, does it also open the door to more potential for misinformation? Like, should we be worried about that?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. It's like anything else on the internet, right?
Why?
You've got to be discerning.
Right.
Take everything with a grain of salt. It's great to learn from other people's experiences, but you've got to do your own research too.
Totally.
And consult with a financial advisor if you need to. Don't just base major decisions on what you see on social media.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about mindful spending, open conversations, and all this hustle in the gig economy. How does that connect to mental health and financial well-being?
Well, I think that's a key differentiator for millennials.
Yeah.
They've seen firsthand how financial stress can really impact your mental and physical health.
Yeah.
So they're prioritizing self-care, work-life balance, seeking support when they need it. It's not just about the money itself. It's about how money fits into a fulfilling life.
It's almost like they're saying, hey, I'm not willing to sacrifice my well-being for a bigger paycheck.
Exactly. And that might mean making different choices, maybe choosing a job with more flexibility or taking a career break, even if it means earning a little less in the short term.
It's about prioritizing what truly matters.
Yes. And on that note, we can't forget about the rise of DIY investing.
Oh, yeah. Those apps like Robinhood have really changed the game. It's pretty amazing that anyone with a smartphone can start building an investment portfolio.
It really is. And they're not just sticking to traditional stocks and bonds either. The article mentions a growing interest in things like cryptocurrency and peer-to-peer lending,
Right. They're early adopters,
always looking for new opportunities.
which makes sense given their entrepreneurial spirit.
It's like that same energy they bring to the gig economy is spilling over into investing.
And that entrepreneurial spirit is also reflected in the whole idea of building a personal brand for income diversification, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
It's about creating your own unique identity and showcasing your skills to attract clients or customers.
It's like you're not just relying on one job or one source of income.
Exactly. You're building multiple streams. And that's crucial in this gig economy world.
So we've got this picture of millennials being adaptable, experience-driven, prioritizing their well-being, embracing the gig economy and tech.
Yeah.
They're really changing how we think about money and work.
The whole new paradigm.
So now let's get tactical. Let's talk about the specific strategies they're using to make this all work.
Sounds good. The article outlines a bunch of tactics from managing emergency funds to tackling debt to rethinking retirement and investing. We'll explore all that next.
All right, let's do it. Let's dive in. Okay, so let's dig into some of these millennial money makeover strategies that the article talks about. First up, emergency funds. Like, we all know we need them, but the article makes it clear that it's especially crucial for millennials with that whole gig economy instability thing.
Yeah, it's like that safety net that allows you to, you know, take those risks and pursue your passions and deal with unexpected stuff without freaking out.
Exactly. And the article mentions that millennials are actually aiming for larger emergency funds than previous generations, like enough to cover several months of living expenses.
Which makes total sense when you think about it. Okay,
Yeah.
what about automation? That's another big one.
Yeah, automation is super interesting. It's like this secret weapon for saving and investing without even thinking about it.
Right. It's all about using technology to your advantage.
Like, you can literally set it and forget it. You can have money automatically transferred to your savings, your investments, your debt repayment. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, there are so many tools available now to make it super easy. A lot of banking apps have automation features, and there are tons of dedicated apps for saving and investing.
Okay, let's talk about student loans. I mean, that's a huge burden for so many millennials.
Yeah, it's a major issue. The article talks about different strategies for tackling that debt, like understanding your repayment options and figuring out what aligns with your goals.
So, like, income-driven repayment plans.
Exactly. Those can be a lifesaver because your monthly payments are based on how much you're earning. And refinancing can sometimes help lower your interest rate. And don't forget about loan forgiveness programs for certain professions.
Right. It's worth looking into all those options.
Definitely. And of course, it's not just student loans. Millennials might have credit card debt or other high-interest loans to deal with too.
Yeah, for sure.
So the article emphasizes prioritizing that high-interest debt repayment
Yeah.
because compound interest can be a real killer, you know. It can make that debt balloon out of control if you're not careful.
Okay, let's shift gears to something a little more fun. Retirement. Yeah.
That seems far off for some people.
No, right? But millennials are actually approaching retirement with a fresh perspective. Like, they're open to the idea of early retirement, or at least having the financial freedom to make choices.
That's where the FIRE movement comes in. Financial independence, retire early. It's about saving and investing aggressively, like way more than previous generations, to reach financial freedom way before the traditional retirement age.
It sounds kind of intense.
It definitely takes dedication, but even if you're not aiming for full-blown early retirement, just having that level of flexibility, like being able to take a career break or travel without worrying about money, that's pretty appealing to a lot of people.
Totally. It's like having options.
Exactly. And you don't have to go all in on FIRE to benefit from some of its principles. Just starting to contribute to a 401k or an IRA early on and consistently investing can make a huge difference down the road.
Speaking of investing, the article also mentions SRI and ESG funds. Can you explain what those are all about?
Sure. SRI stands for Socially Responsible Investing, and ESG is for Environmental, Social, and Governance. Basically, they let you invest in companies that align with your values.
So if someone's passionate about sustainability, they can invest in companies that are, doing good for the environment.
Exactly. And if you care about social justice, you can choose funds that prioritize companies with fair labor practices and diverse leadership. Millennials are really leading the charge on this. They want their investments to not just make money, but also make a positive impact.
That's awesome. It's like they're using their money to vote for a better world.
Totally. Okay, back to the gig economy for a second. The article really hammers home the importance of building a personal brand for income diversification.
Right. It's like creating your own little empire based on your skills and passions.
It's about being entrepreneurial and adaptable.
Eh,
you know, constantly learning and evolving and finding new ways to create value.
And showcasing that value to the world.
Exactly. You got to market yourself effectively. Okay, last but not least, the article talks about financial self-care.
Which at first sounds a bit like, fluffy and out there, but
Don't get it.
but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. Like managing your finances can be stressful. It's important to recognize that.
Absolutely. It's not about being perfect with your money. It's about having a healthy relationship with it. So
Yeah.
that might mean, taking breaks when you need them, seeking support if you're feeling overwhelmed.
So what are some practical ways to practice financial self-care?
The article has some good suggestions. You could try tracking your expenses to get a handle on your spending habits, or doing a no-spend day or weekend.
Oh yeah, those can be fun challenges.
And if you're really struggling, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Therapy or financial coaching can be super beneficial.
It's like with anything else, taking care of your mental health is key.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Emergency funds, automation, student loans, retirement, SRI, investing, financial self-care. It's clear that millennials are doing things differently. They're rewriting the rules of personal finance.
Yeah, they're definitely making their mark. So let's bring this back to our listener for a moment. How does this millennial money makeover resonate with your own experiences and aspirations? What stands out to you as particularly relevant or inspiring?
It's like they're giving us permission to question those old assumptions about money and success.
And they're showing us that there's not just like one right way to do things when it comes to personal finance.
Yeah, totally. There's no cookie-cutter approach.
It's all about finding what works for you.
Exactly.
So I guess the question for our listeners is like, what part of this millennial money makeover really speaks to you? What could you see yourself trying out or incorporating into your own financial life?
It's really about figuring out what resonates with your values and your goals.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe it's that emphasis on flexibility and having multiple income streams, or maybe it's about aligning your spending with what you truly care about.
Or maybe it's that whole idea that financial well-being isn't just about numbers. It's about creating a life that feels balanced and, fulfilling.
Right, it's about the big picture.
And I think that's a powerful message for everyone, regardless of how old you are or, your financial situation.
Totally. It's about taking control of your finances and making choices that support your overall well-being.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Millennial Money Makeover, what's the one thing you hope our listeners walk away with?
I hope they feel empowered to kind of challenge the status quo and create a financial life that truly reflects their values and their aspirations.
I love that. And remember, it's not about like blindly following trends. It's about taking what resonates with you and making it your own, figuring out how it fits into your unique circumstances.
Exactly. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's about finding what works for you.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We explored why millennials are doing things differently. We talked about specific strategies, and we even challenged our listeners to think about how they can apply these principles to their own lives.
It's been a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, I've learned a lot. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of millennial money. We'll catch you next time.